The storm came down from the mountains like a living thing, black and roaring, swallowing the desert sky in minutes. One moment the horizon was a dull copper line, heat still clinging to the air, and the next it vanished beneath a wall of boiling clouds. Jack Callahan felt it before he truly saw it, the sudden chill that crawled under his shirt, the way the wind shifted and began to howl through the scrub like a warning. His horse, Dusty, snorted and tossed his head, hooves stamping nervously as thunder cracked overhead, sharp and violent, like rifle shots echoing across the plains. Rain hit hard, not in drops but in fists, slamming into the ground so fiercely it kicked dust into the air before, turning it instantly to thick, sucking mud. Lightning split the sky in jagged white scars, and for a heartbeat at a time the desert lit up like noon. Jack squinted into the glare, pulling his hat low, urging Dusty forward toward a line of rocks he knew could offer some shelter if the storm worsened. Another flash tore across the sky, closer this time, and something moved in the wash ahead. Jack reined in sharply, Dusty sliding a step in the slick ground. At first he thought it was an animal, a deer caught out in the open, maybe, or a coyote driven mad by the thunder. Then the lightning came again, longer, brighter, and showed him the truth. A woman was stumbling through the wash, water already surging around her legs. Her dark hair clung to her face and shoulders, plastered there by rain. She was wrapped in a soaked blanket, holding a small child against her chest. The child's head lolled weakly against her shoulder, arms barely clinging to her neck. The floodwater raced around them, brown and foaming, rising with terrifying speed. Jack's breath caught. "Damn it," he muttered, swinging down from the saddle without thinking. Everyone in this territory knew better than to get involved. This land was Apache land, and the stories ran deep, stories of ambushes in narrow passes, of settlers found with arrows in their backs, of blood debts that never truly ended. Men survived out here by minding their own business. Men survived by riding the other way. But another crack of thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the ground, and the woman slipped. She nearly went under, barely keeping her footing as the current shoved against her knees. The child gave a thin, weak cry that was almost lost in the roar of rain. Jack didn't think anymore. He ran. Mud sucked at his boots, each step heavy and unsteady. The wind shoved at his shoulders, rain stinging his face like thrown gravel. When the woman saw him coming, fear flared instantly in her eyes. She tried to turn away, tried to climb up the bank. But the ground gave out beneath her, and she slid back toward the rushing water. "Easy!" Jack shouted, lifting his hands as he ran. "Easy. I ain't gonna hurt you." She didn't understand the words, but she understood the danger. Her grip tightened on the child, and she said something, sharp and urgent in Apache, her voice breaking with panic and exhaustion. Another surge of water slammed into her legs, knocking her to her knees. Jack lunged forward and caught her just as she started to fall. The impact nearly took him down too. The current tugged at his calves like unseen hands, trying to drag all three of them back into the wash. He wrapped one arm around the woman's shoulders and grabbed the child with the other, hauling them against his chest as his boots slid in the mud. Lightning struck close enough to make the air crack, splitting a dead tree somewhere upstream with a sound like a cannon blast. Dusty screamed behind them, reins snapping taut as the horse fought against the storm. The woman struggled for a second, eyes wild, her free hand pushing against Jack's chest. Then another wave hit, stronger than the last, and fear overtook pride. She clung to him instead, fingers digging into his coat as water surged up to their thighs. "Storm'll kill you out here," Jack yelled over the roar. "I got shelter." "Not far!" He didn't know if she understood, but she stopped fighting him. That was enough. Step by step they fought their way toward higher ground. Jack angled his body sideways to take the force of the current, muscles screaming as he planted each foot. Mud filled his mouth when he stumbled, gritty and foul. The rain blurred his vision. The world reduced to grey sheets and flashes of white light. The child was frighteningly still in his arms, small body trembling, breaths shallow and uneven. Halfway up the bank, the ground gave way entirely. Jack felt his feet slide out from under him, and then they were all down, water roaring over them. For a heart-stopping second, he lost his grip. Panic flared hot and sharp in his chest. He clamped his arms tighter, rolling onto his side, digging his fingers into wet grass and stone. The current tore at his legs, trying to pull him back, but he held on. Teeth clenched so hard his jaw ached. With a desperate heave, he dragged them free of the wash and onto a strip of rocky ground just above the floodline. They lay there for a moment, gasping, rain pounding down on their backs. Jack's arms shook uncontrollably, his chest burning with every breath. He pushed himself up on one elbow and looked ahead. Through the rain and darkness he saw it, a dark, low shape against the rocks. An old line shack, half collapsed but still standing, built years ago by some forgotten trapper or drover. The door hung crooked on its hinges, but the roof looked solid enough to keep out the worst of the storm. "There," Jack rasped, pointing. "Almost there." The woman followed his gaze. Hope flickered across her face, quickly smothered by exhaustion. She nodded once. Jack staggered to his feet, hauling them up again. He shifted the child in his arms, wrapping his coat tighter around the small, shaking body, then took the woman's wrist and pulled her along. Each step felt heavier than the last, his legs threatening to buckle beneath him, but he forced himself onward. They reached the shack just as the sky seemed to open completely, rain pouring down in blinding sheets. Jack kicked the door with his boot, forcing it inward, and shoved them all inside. He turned just long enough to drag his saddle and Dusty's reins through the doorway before slamming the door shut against the wind. The noise outside was deafening, the storm howling and pounding at the thin walls as if trying to tear the place apart. Inside it was dark and cramped, the air heavy with the smell of wet wood and old dust. The woman backed away immediately, pressing herself and the child into the far corner. Her eyes never left Jack, sharp and watchful despite her shaking hands. Jack leaned against the door for a moment, head bowed, catching his breath as rainwater streamed from his hat brim to the dirt floor. Slowly, carefully, he stepped away from the door and lowered himself to one knee. He gently set the child down against the wall and took a step back, lifting his hands, palms open. "You're safe," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over the storm. "Storm'll pass, I promise." Outside, thunder rolled again, deep and long, and the shack shuddered. Inside, the space between them felt just as charged. Two strangers bound together by the storm, fear and the thin, fragile line between survival and disaster.